All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Jim Crispino. I'm the Senior Director of Developer Evangelism here at Genesys, and I will be presenting our DevCast webinar today. My topic is going to be third-party media and business process task routing using our new task management API. So I'm going to cover a few different topics throughout this DevCast. I hope it will all be interesting. I'm really excited about the task management API. But before I get into that, a few logistics here. There will be, I'll try and keep 10 minutes at the end. That's based on what I've got to present today. We should be able to do that. And I am recording this. It will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, and that will be accessible from our video page on the Developer Center at developer.genesys.cloud. And lastly, next month's registration for DevCast will open about the second week in September. So visit the Developer Center, go to the DevCast and newsletter section, and you can sign up for that webinar for next month there. And if you want to share your thoughts with us on any upcoming topics you would like to see, you can use either that URL or the email. You can get those from watching the recording if you don't jot those down right now. And with that, let's hop into things. So I am going to stop this in the show. Let me share a different screen here with you. All right, let me make sure that's the screen I want to show you. It is. All right. Let me clean some stuff up. So today, my topic is routing third-party media and business process management. So we're going to cover a few things here. I'm going to talk about our legacy routing of third-party objects. So Genesys, as you all aware, we're able to route voice calls, chats, emails, messages, several different media types. We can also, it's not widely known, but we have the ability to route third-party email and chat, and that comes in useful in like systems like Salesforce that have their own email system and their own chat system, but you want to use Genesys and the routing mechanism and skills-based routing and everything built into Genesys to route those Salesforce emails and chats, or it doesn't have to be Salesforce. Maybe you want to route Gmail emails around. You can do that with Genesys, and I'm gonna start with that. So let me show you a few topics here. Let me get rid of that. And if you go to the Developer Center at developer.genesys.cloud and you go to the guides section, so we have a series of articles that are all guides on how to do certain common things that we've seen over the course of time. And down here, if you scroll a ways, you'll see third-party object routing guide. Okay, so if you open that and you read through that, that will give you some sample code and kind of talk about how you can submit a third-party email or third-party chat into Genesys to have that routed. Now, you're not actually sending the email to Genesys. You're not actually routing the chat to Genesys. You're routing a package that identifies that item to an agent. And when they click on it, they're going to accept it. And then they'll have to work in Salesforce on that email or in Salesforce on that chat. Okay, so Genesys is just the routing engine in that case. And you can read through this guide afterwards. I will put that in the chat widget here so that you all can have that and look at that. If you have any questions, don't put them in the chat, please. Put them in the Q&A widget on Zoom so that I can answer those as we go along. All right, so I'll let you read through that at your leisure. After maybe after this webinar, or maybe you're bored during this and you want to read through it. That's up to you. What I want to show you is if you go to Conversations, if you go to the Conversation API, conversation API. And you search for, if we just search for email, we have a post, create an email conversation. The direction is inbound, and that'll create an inbound email. It is not a Genesys email. This is a third-party email. And the same can be said for chat. So if you search for chat, you can find the post that creates a web chat conversation. It just creates the conversation container for that. It does not create and actually send messages through. It's just the container of the conversation. So I've starred both of those. So those are down here in my toolbox. So let me bring that up. And let's start with the chat, since I've got that visible here. So I've kind of, well, I don't have that filled out the way I thought I should. Let me, oh, those all reset. Interesting. All right, well, we're gonna set this up from scratch. So with chat's of limited use. If I'm routing third-party stuff, the only way I can route chat is with default routing using a QID. I cannot have a flow with logic in it. All I can do with that third-party chat is put it into a queue, and any available agent, maybe with the appropriate skill, can pick that up. Let me get my QID. I'm going to go to admin. I'm going to go to queues. I want to put this chat into this queue, so I'm going to grab that QID. This is just the easiest way to do it, in my opinion, is to go grab it off the URL. So when I make that third-party chat, I'm going to put it in that queue. The provider. So this is a string field. This can literally be anything to identify the provider. If you were going to send in a Salesforce chat, you might put in Salesforce there. I'm just going to put in my last name. This is a chat that came from the Crispino system. So I'm not going to put language. I'm not going to put a priority. I'm not going to put any skills. I've already got an object property. I just put in a URL to Wikipedia just to show you how you can have some attached data there. And I can put in the customer name, who is chatting, who started this chat in Salesforce or whatever system, and that I want to send that into Genesys and give the agent an idea of the human's name that the agent will be interacting with. So I don't need a lot of data to get that kicked off, right? I need the queue to put it in, where it came from, who is chatting, and maybe some attached data. Now, this attached data, if you were really sending in a chat from Salesforce or from Zendesk or from any third-party chat provider, you would probably want to include a URL that goes directly to that vendor's chat interface, right? So that when that interaction is accepted by an agent, they will be able to either click on a link or see an iframe of that system's chat so that the agent can respond back and forth with the customer. All right. I am going to send this in, so let me execute that request. All right, there it is over here on Genesys Cloud. So let me answer that. All right, now this is the anticlimactic part of the whole thing. I've got this chat. It was from a third-party system. So Genesys doesn't know, Genesys doesn't have the UI to handle that chat. The third-party systems UI has to be used to handle that chat. So what does Genesys do? We just present a little message that says this interaction uses an external provider. We don't show any of the user data. We don't have anything that knows how to handle that chat. We literally just routed the container of this using skills-based routing. We got it to the right agent. It is up to the contact center to implement the ability for that user, that agent, to get to that chat. As I said, we don't show any of the attached data here, and we don't have scripts. So what you really need to do is create an interaction widget that would show that. So let me show you that real quick. Let's just go turn that on. I'll show you how I do this. So I've got a chat going. I'm going to go to integrations. I have from a previous DevCast, I have a DevCast interaction widget down here. So let me go turn that on. Yes. All right, so that's not a dynamic update. I need to reload. I will still have my chat interaction, so it won't go away. So when this reloads, I should have an interaction widget displayed now or available to me. All right, so I've got my chat. I'm back where I was, but now I have this extra interaction widget. And if I click on that, my interaction widget is not pretty. Okay, I will admit that. It's my own little developer bootstrapping sample here that I've got. But I do load up the conversation event. So I just show you, and you can see, hey, there's that URL. So if I really wanted to, I could take that URL and do window.location.href and point it to that URL, and that user interface, Wikipedia, would show up in my interaction widget. Okay, so I do have a better example of that. Wait just a minute. When we do email, you'll see exactly what I mean. But my point of showing you that is that this container, this chat container, can contain the link to the third party's web UI for handling that chat. And you could have an interaction widget over here that the agent could click on to actually respond and interact with that chat with the customer. So I'll go ahead and end that chat. You still have to pick a wrap-up code. Click done. Sorry for my messages there. All right, so that's the chat. The chat's of limited use, I think, because you can only send it to a queue. You can't perform any logic, any kind of looking at data and determining where it should go in the contact center. So third-party emails are more useful, in my opinion. And I'm going to have to flush this out a little bit too. So give me a second. I need to go to admin, and I need to go to architect, because I need to get my call flow ID or my email flow ID. So give me 1 second. Go to inbound email, and I've got a DevCast developer support one here. So let me load that up. All right, so there's my flow ID. Let me grab that. Go back over here. All right, so instead of sending that to a queue, I'm going to send that to a flow that can at least perform some logic. Provider, again, we'll put in Crispino. Not going to use skills, language, or priority. I'm going to go ahead and keep that proxy.url. I'm going to, again, this would be like the URL to the item that you want to iframe, whatever you want to iframe there. You can put in a to address. Maybe this was sent to sales@genesis.com. Genesis sales. And it was from Jim Crispino at genesis.com. All right, and I want to have a, let's see, we'll just say subject is demo of Genesis Cloud. Direction, so for email, you have to pick a direction. We'll pick inbound. We want this to come in. You can send a text body or an HTML body of the email. That's fine. We're not going to use it as actual email in this case. And then external contact ID. If you're, say it's Salesforce, right? You have an email from Salesforce. Salesforce probably has a contact record for that. So you might put in the URL or the Salesforce ID of that contact. You might put that here, or whatever external identifier for that contact is. I will leave it blank for now. So here's the body of my third-party email that I'm going to send in. And if I send that in, this is going to go through that flow. I got my 200. Okay, that's going to go through my flow, and it's going to route to my agent. I'm going to click OK. Again, it's a third-party email, so Genesis doesn't know how to display anything about this. It just knows that some email arrived, or some third-party email arrived with some attached data that points to that email. And I have my interaction widget because I turned that on, and I turned it on for both email and chat. If I click on this time, it's going to flash here for a moment. I think there it goes. So pardon my developer focused interaction widget. It sits there for a second, gives me time to read through the JSON really quickly and then redirects. So again, this time that proxy.url was found, and I did window.location href, and I said in Wikipedia, right? But this could have been a link to the Salesforce user interface, taking it to that email. And in this panel, I could have it take up the full space, and I could respond in Salesforce, iframed within Genesys Cloud here, to that email. So those are the traditional ways that we've had to be able to support third-party email and chat. And I also need to point out, this is really useful for routing anything. Many of our App Foundry video providers use this same mechanism to route video calls through Genesys. So they will use an email interaction as a video interaction, right? Then again, Genesys, it's just a generic package that we're routing around to an agent. And when it lands there, we can iframe whatever user interface we need to. So a lot of the video vendors have hijacked an email and used it as a video interaction. You could also route faxes. You could route documents. People do still send snail mail, and those get scanned in as a document. You might need to route that around to to an agent to work on, maybe even a back office worker. So that's what we've had up until now. What I'm really excited about is that the Genesys product team has been working on task management. That is a true generic object. We call them work items that you can create with data, with a certain schema, and route that around. And we actually have a user interface to show for that data. And so that's what I want to show you now. Let me end this conversation and mark that done. I guess before I go to task management, let me see what questions we have. Dottie, is it just routing, or can we do reporting too? So, okay, Dottie, yes, you can do reporting. So if we go to the performance dashboards, let me bring those up. Let me clear all my filters. Why that's not clearing. Oh, that's content search. I'm sorry. Let me go to sorry guys. Let me go to interactions. Let me clear all those. Let me go to today, and I want to do all interaction types. All right. So here are. I've been doing a lot of. I got prepared for this ahead of time, so I did several email and chats coming in. So you see them all. They look like normal Genesys emails. So that's kind of the trick, is that it can be difficult to report what was a real email versus what was a Genesys or what was a third-party email. But there are ways to tell. You can look at some attached data properties. There's no transcript. There's no recording for this. There are ways to isolate these out. Even that, I don't think I can show you that in this view. We don't show the provider, but that provider property where I put Crispino, or you could put Salesforce, that provider property is in the JSON object of the conversation. So you can filter by that if you were doing reporting with a third-party BI tool to separate your Genesys emails from your third-party emails. So let's see. Can you please make window full screen? I'm sorry. I didn't make it full screen, but I do have it zoomed in. Hopefully you guys can see that. Lost voice. Not sure. Dottie said we lost my voice. I hope you can still hear me. If you can still hear me, can you, somebody in the chat, hopefully you guys are still hearing me. Okay, I got a thumbs up. Somebody can hear me. All right. Sarah Ledger says, is there a way that we could get surveys and evaluations for external interactions? So while we can report on them, the Genesis survey functionality apparently does not work with surveys, and I don't know about evaluations. I don't know why they filtered that out, but you apparently can't trigger a survey for a third-party email or chat. It's just not something that they coded for. In fact, it seems like they specifically coded only Genesis emails and chats. So that would be a good thing to put on the ideas board if you really want to do this. But I will say it may not be worth the time, because the next thing I'm going to show you, work item task management routing, will probably have surveys linked to them. So hopefully that'll be a moot point here pretty soon. Can you set external tag on such conversations? So Rasco, you can't set an external tag, but there is that external contact ID. So you could use that as an external tag. You could also, you have that attribute data, right? So when you're submitting these, you have these attributes. You can add any number of key value pairs to that. So you don't necessarily need an external tag unless that was something specifically you were hoping to utilize, because you have other logic that does that. Provider is a filter in the interactions performed. Oh, thank you, whoever the anonymous attendee was. Somebody said over in the performance view here. So let's go find that real quick. So we'll go back to our list of interactions, and in our filters, there is I guess there's a provider. There we go, provider. So if we put in Crispino here, it's going to filter by Crispino. If we remove that and we put in Salesforce, all of those should go away. And there we go. All right. Hey, thanks whoever chimed in on that. That's a new one for me. All right. For surveys, even if we have quality policy set up, yes, even if you have a quality policy set up to trigger on a queue, well, that might work. Honestly, I have not dug in to see if I could truly make surveys and evaluations completely work, like working around the system. But I do know I did try emails at one time and could not get a survey to trigger for a third-party email, but it has been a while. All right, let's see. Let's make sure your browser window full screen. We see a browser and your desktop background. Okay. Yeah, the problem is it makes it hard to flip between windows, but I'll do my best to make that bigger. All right, and you can filter. Oh, okay? So Roscoe, apparently in the performance dashboard, you can use an external tag to filter. So there it is, external tag. Yeah, so that's not a property you can send in on the creation, but once you create that email, you could immediately do a patch and update the conversation object with the external tag. Maybe that's the way to do it. All right, I got to move on, or we're not going to get through this presentation. So let me talk about task routing now. So I'm going to go over to the Developer Center, and I'm going to collapse my thing here. And I don't know about that. Task routing. So if task routing right now is in preview, it's imminently going to be released. It's so close. Should be the next month or two. It's in beta right now. So it's in platform, and our beta APIs are all under platform, under preview APIs. So if I go there and I select task management, these are the APIs available to me. Since they're in preview, they're not, I think you can execute them here. Yeah, you can. I'm not going to use them from here. I'm going to use them in Postman. So let me show you a little bit of the setup first before we go into it. So if I go to admin and I go down to task management. So when this feature is turned on, you'll have a new admin panel in here for task management. And there are some concepts new to work items and task management that you need to be familiar with. So this is when they looked at creating task management, they looked at Genesys Engage, our kind of legacy Genesys on-premise platform. Genesys Engage had a system called IWD, Intelligent Work Distribution, work item distribution, or something to that effect. It was meant for business process routing. You could submit long-term containers like a loan. Maybe you had a work type for a loan, and that had several steps and had to have several touch points along the line for a home loan. And it was a long-lived back office kind of process. So we've kind of brought a lot of those concepts over to Genesys Cloud. We have work types and work bins and work items. So I'll explain each of those. I'll start with a work item because that's the root media type. There's nothing to set up for the work item necessarily here. There's no work item widget to go into, but custom attributes, that's probably what best represents a work item. So I have created a set of custom attributes for a work item that I want. These are the key value pairs that for that work item that need to be there to give the agent some information about what they're working on, how to, like if this was a home loan, maybe I would have the loan, the person who submitted the loan, how much money they're wanting to get, where the property is, et cetera, right? There's some key fields you want to collect so that when that's submitted and somebody in the back office is going to process that home loan request, maybe they're going to do, maybe you need the social security number, the US social security number to do a background check and make sure that person has the amount of, the income to be able to pay that home loan. So you would want all of those custom attributes on a certain work type, and you can have multiple schemas. So like the custom attributes create a schema, you give it a name, a description, and you can add any number of custom attributes. You can pick from a number of field types that we have available, short or long text, a URL, a number, drop-down list, a checkbox, dates, etc. So you can create a schema of data that is required for a work item to have. So we'll see where that comes into play here in a second. If I go to work types, what that is. Okay, so work types, these are the categories. So work types represent a work item. It's kind of the metadata of a work item. And this is where you link the attributes to the work type. Again, this will all become clear in 1 second. So I created a devcast work type. Probably ought to call it, let's call that devcast work item. Call it that. And it's going to it's going to put stuff into a work bin. So let me explain a work bin. Like a queue, you can put stuff into a work bin. So a work bin is very much like a queue, except it's a holding place. It's like your email inbox. Nothing gets pushed from a work bin. It's just, it sits there. And we have the task management service is monitoring the work bins and monitoring the times that things sit in a work bin, and you can prioritize those. So if a home loan came into a work bin and it has sat there for 3 days and nobody's worked on it, maybe that work item, that item in the work bin gets moved to a higher priority. So it filters up through the work bin so that it gets better status and is able to be worked. So you have the concept of a work bin. Let's say that. You have deadlines, right? Maybe certain things in the work bin have to be worked in a certain number of days or hours. So when is an item due? When does it expire? What's its lifespan? You can set all of those in days, hours, minutes, and seconds. You can route. So we do have routing. So if something initially comes into a work bin, you can initially route it to an agent, and then that agent can work on it, put it back in the work bin. Then they can go back the next day and pull it out of the work bin, work on it some more. Again, these are for long, asynchronous kind of process types. So I'm going to have anything that comes into my work bin is going to go first to my DevCast work item queue. That'll get routed to me and I'll work on it. There are status transitions. So initially everything comes in as open. And then once an agent gets it, you could move it to in progress. You can put it on hold. You can add additional statuses and transition rules. So this is like creating a map of workflow statuses for a work item. And then there's auto transitions. So you could set up to auto transition from open after a certain time. If it's sat there from open and it's sat there for 3 days and needs to be worked, you can move it to in progress and assign it to someone. So you can add those rules. So again, it's still in beta. It's a work in progress, and even I haven't played with it as much as I would like. My point today was to show you how you can use it to submit work items in. So the last thing I want to show you in the admin interface is work bins. So you can define any number of work bins for the different business process items that you need to work. You might have a loan work bin, you might have a new account work bin, you might have a address update work bin, et cetera. So work bins can contain different work types, and agents can go in and pull things from those and work on them as they see fit. So you can view work bins. There will be a new widget on the left-hand panel called Task Management, and you'll be able to see what's in a work bin. I have nothing in there right now, so let's put something in there. Again, I'm gonna use Postman. So I have I've set up this request. I'm sorry, the request is kind of small, but it's calling API v2 task management work items. It's doing a post, so it's going to do a create of a work item. The name of that work item is going to be test. It's going to use a type ID. So if I go back to admin and I go back down to task management, it needs to know the work type, the type, so it knows the schema. Okay, so it needs to know what fields are available. So just grab that. You grab that ID. And that's what I put in. Sorry, where'd Postman go? There it is. So that's the ID I put in for the type ID. You can put in a description, and then you've got your custom fields. So we created that schema. We created that custom attribute schema, and it had these fields: description, notes, link URL. Here's the key: description _ text, link URL _ URL, notes _ long text. So if I look at Postman, the key name, not the name, but the key name is what you use for the key name, obviously, and then the value. So I just put in some dummy values, my description, my notes, my wikipedia.org, right? I'm going to go ahead and send that in. And that created, and I should have a new interaction here. It is, here it is. So it's a work item, and I'm going to answer that. So this item is due in a month, September 28th, right? This is because of my work type, I said that was the length. Well, I didn't say that. That's the default is 1 month. So I have 1 month that this is due. It has to be done by that time. I could shorten that, obviously, or I could lengthen that up to a year or so. The UI for a work item shows you those custom attributes. So if you had a whole bunch, you can find, if you had 100 custom attributes, you could filter them here. I only have 3. I have the notes, the link URL, the description. If this was say a fax document that came in, so maybe the fax document is sitting in some fax system that you've got, you could have sent the URL to that fax. I could click on it, it'll open that fax in a third party, in a browser tab. I can look at that fax, I can come back to it, and I can work on that work item. If I need to, I can park that back in the work bin. I can go back to the work bin and refresh. Is it not refreshing? Let's see, I got to pick that work bin. There it is. So I can assign that back to me. Actually, it's already assigned, so I think I need to come here and return it to my roster. That's what I need to do. Return it to the roster, and it shows up back here on my roster, and I can open that up and work on it again. So again, long-running, asynchronous kind of processes, but they don't have to be long-running. They could be emails. They could be chats from a third-party system. They could be video interactions. They can literally be anything. But what's nice about them is they do have a UI in Genesis. They will have interaction widgets. They don't have them today, but they will have interaction capabilities. So you could iframe the third-party web apps that you need to have access to be able to work on those work items. And if they are long-running, you have kind of process states and due dates and expiration times and priorities that can be applied. Again, if you're coming from Genesis Engage, if you migrated from Genesis Engage to Genesis Cloud and you're wanting IWD functionality, kind of all of that is coming along. So, all right. With that, let me answer a few questions because they're starting to pile up here. Let's see. So Dan, back on our previous topic about surveys and evaluations, Dan Fontaine put in, if you set a policy to record the screen, you should be able to attach an evaluation to that recording. Of course, screen recordings are not retained forever, but that should work. So whoever was asking about evaluations, that might be a workaround to that solution. So maybe do screen recordings and a policy for that. Okay, Abdullah, you're wanting to know when task management is going to be published to all orgs. The release date is scheduled for sometime in October. That's not a guarantee. Okay, I thought it was going to be available by the time this DevCast came along. So I scheduled this DevCast a month or two ago, and that's when the release date was supposed to be. But it is imminent. The functionality is there. They're working on a few last little bugs to clean up, but they're shooting for an October go live to have all the documentation in place and kind of everything generally available. Again, not a guarantee, but that's the goal. Sarah Ledger, will we be able to create work items ad hoc within the UI, not just through the API? I don't know the answer to that. That's a really good question. I would say if it's not available, it would be easy to create a little web app that lives off the apps menu that would allow, or maybe off the sidebar, you could have a little widget here, a little UI to let you fill out the fields and call that API. That'd be a trivial development task. A developer familiar with the Genesis APIs could probably knock out a simple little form and call that API in a couple of hours, maybe a day's worth of work. May not be the prettiest UI, but that would be a way to do it. I would imagine at some point Genesis will probably allow you to create work items based on a schema, but that's not going to be there day one. So is the UI available? So this is Samik. Is the UI available to us? The agent UI never works when I create work item. Yes, you're right. So I actually just got the agent UI turned on my org yesterday. So it's not really in beta yet. The product manager turned it on for me so I could give you all a preview of what it will look like. If you're in the beta today, you can create work items. They can go into a work bin. They can prioritize, but you need to use a lot of data actions and architect workflows to kind of move those from one state to the next. Again, GA is coming. It's all going to be there just in another month or two. So just be patient. Byron, so could you use a workflow to update data from a work bin to use for calling a data action? Yes. So in fact, that's what the product manager told me that they're doing today at a couple of customers that are trialing this. They are heavily using triggers. So if you watched, not last month was the mobile SDK. The month before, I did a topic on triggers. So if you use triggers and you use workflows and you use data actions, yes, you can operate on work items to your heart's content. You can do updates to them. You can move them from one work bin to another. You could, assign them or something. Again, there's no agent UI, but right now, most of it is behind the scenes robotic process automation stuff that you can do. But you can certainly take advantage of all of that today. Sarah, will we be able to link interactions to a work item? That would be interesting, wouldn't it? So I'm assuming like you've got a home loan and you're emailing somebody. I do think that's a good question. Maybe not day one, but I know that for some of our media types, you can link other interactions to them for like a long running conversation and things, or a voice call that also has a chat associated with it or something like that. So there likely is going to be that. Again, that's probably not a day one release item, but that's a great idea to be able to link calls, chats, and emails for a long-running process. I'll bring that up to the product manager. I'm sure that's on their roadmap. Is work bin utilization configurable? I believe it is. So if I go to admin, and that's in organization settings. No, where's utilization? Utilization's kind of at the top level, isn't it? They probably have not built out that UI yet for updating this to have work items, but they will. So you will be able to specify that, Jordan, I believe. It's going to be a first-class citizen media type. So I imagine they will add it to this UI before the release. Kurt, boy, here's Chris Bolin. Okay, hey, Chris Bolin's on. He's the product manager for this, so he's got a couple of points here. I'll get to him here in just a minute. Would a work bin work item be used for ITSM service requests or incident? Yes. So ServiceNow, right? Your route a ServiceNow incident to an agent. That is exactly that's a perfect use case for task management. It's not a long-lived one necessarily, but it could be, right? An incident could go on. You could have an incident that plays out over time. Maybe you don't want to use that incident as an email, but you want the case, you want the ServiceNow case or incident to be routed. Yes, create a task management schema for that would contain the incident ID, the person who reported the incident, whatever. Then you can use task management to get that to an agent and have them work on it. They would be working on it in ServiceNow, obviously, but you could use Genesys for routing that incident to agents. So perfect use case, Kirk. All right. Will it be in GDemo to present to our customers before that? Abdullah. I don't know if and when it'll be in GDemo. GDemo uses Genesis Cloud production instances, I believe. So presumably it'll be in GDemo when it's GA, but probably I don't know if it'll be there before that. All right. So Chris Boland, our product manager, I should bring you in here, Chris. Let me see if I can do that. Participants, let me find you. Chris Boland. I'll bring you in as a panelist. Maybe you can answer some questions if you want. All right. Let's see, I think I did that. All right. So Chris, yeah, you may not want your video on. I don't know what state you're in, but I thought I'd bring you in. You can at least get to the QA panel and answer some of these.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I did want to just throw a couple of things out there. So though I appreciate Jim's enthusiasm and certainly want to level set on the GA targets. So we originally were targeting October. It's likely that based on some scale testing issues that we've run into during beta, we will end up pushing out GA probably more towards the end of the year. Still TBD on that, but I would expect that we are not going to GA quite in October yet. To some of the other questions you guys had, so utilization that Jim has up on the screen right now, you can set utilization for work items in the API today. We are going to push the UI out in October with another set of features that are called utilization labels, which maybe Jim can do a devcast on in the future, but utilization labels will allow you to control the number of interactions an agent takes based on the label of the conversation or the work item. So I could say only route 3 of the insurance claim work types to a user. So you could actually get kind of utilization at a type level, not just at a high overall level. So that's coming as well. And then someone had a question on kind of relationships and dependencies. So that is future state, absolutely something that is roadmap that we will be doing. So we effectively want to say, can I link a work item to another work item? So a parent-child relationship, because as a result of one work item happening, I need to create 5 more. That's one thing we'll have. So we're kind of an array of work item IDs accordingly. Secondly, we're also going to have a link from a work item to a conversation. So I can say, as a result of receiving this work item, I need to make a phone call. I need to follow up with an email, right? So you have that kind of relationship as well. And vice versa, from a conversation perspective, maybe the conversation needs to create a work item. And I think someone else asked, would we be able to create work items from the UI? Yes, at some point, we will likely offer that. I'd say custom app is probably the way to go up front, because to Jim's point, every work item has a schema associated with it. It has processes associated with it. And to let an agent create an entire work item, they'd have to really know all of the attributes of that. But I think from a custom app perspective, you could probably build out a widget, or at some point we'll have scripter support for work items as well. And maybe you could build something in there, but it's a little bit more complicated than just saying this agent needs to spin up a new work item. You have to know what type of work item, what attributes are going to go on it, what the priority is, what the due date is, frequently actions that you may not want to give to an agent. Maybe a supervisor or an admin could have that role. So anyways, all of those things are coming, and we will support all those things. The relationships and dependencies I'm pretty key about as well, because in the long term, that's going to help us drive journey orchestration. So that I can say, for a particular customer, show me all the interactions that that go around servicing the customer. That includes all communications, but also all work items, because frequently there are work items that happen behind the scenes that a customer never really sees, but it's very important for the agent to know, hey, here's all the work that's happening in support of this customer effort.
Yep. All right.
The questions.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for popping on. I'm sorry, I should have asked you if I could.
No worries. No worries.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I did. Sorry. One other thing I wanted to address, and so this was a question that came up, and there's actually an open question about, can you use work items as a ticketing system? When someone else asked you to use it for like an IT, I can't remember what the acronym was. But I want to be really cautious about letting customers say, hey, can we be your case management system? For the bespoke case management systems that exist in the market, things like Zendesk, things like Salesforce or ServiceNow, right? We have the ability to do a lot of that functionality, meaning create a work item, route it around to agents, and report on it. But we are not bespoke case management systems that have a CRM aspect in the background. Each of those companies that I just listed all allow you to manage data about the customer as well as manage tickets. We can do a lot of the routing of those tickets, and we can tie and sync very closely to those CRMs or even to a homegrown CRM. But I would caution you to say, hey, can Genesys come in and just be my one-stop shop for a case management system, a really bespoke case management system? I think simple use cases, yes. Really full functioned, case management systems that have interfaces for customers to log into, dashboards and whatnot based on due dates and service levels, those kinds of things we might have bits of, but we are not a bespoke case management system. So I think it's about really looking through your needs and understanding what you're looking for and what historical information you'd want before I'd say, yes, we could be your case management system.
Yeah. I always envision it as routing a third-party case management system's items, because not all case management systems even have routing. A lot of them are a pull mechanism, which, if you want to utilize your agents effectively with skills and everything, Genesys routing is perfect for that. And we can interface with those ServiceNow and Zendesk and such and route their items for them, but ultimately let them be the source of truth for that case.
Yep, exactly. And there's one other question that just came in about the lifespan of a work item. So what's nice about work items is they live longer than conversations do. And that's actually the point of a work item. Part of the reason that we developed a new service around work items is to support long-lived things. So a work item by default can have a lifespan of a max of 365 days, so up to a year. What's interesting about the individual work item, though, is that if you come in on day 364 and say, I need this to live for another year, you can expand the life out and actually go up to 5 years. It will let you expand out to 60 months, 60 months. So you just have to do it towards the end of the life of the work item accordingly so that you can expand that time frame. And you can do that through automation. So you could look for a date and say on, the time when this reaches, a lifespan of 11 months, I want to increase the lifespan another 12 months. So there are ways to support that.
All right. Okay, still got another one coming in. Does it mean the work item isn't retained after completion for historical reporting past the 16 months?
No, so the history of a work item will be stored in analytics in the same duration and time span that you would get analytics for a conversation. So on our details records, they last for 18 months. In the jobs endpoint, they last for 60 months, 60. So that is, Sarah, the same length of time that we have for conversations is what you would get for historical information on work items as well.
All right. And Martin Bunting, yes, this is being recorded. It'll be on our YouTube channel, and you can get to it from the Developer Center. I'll show you that real quick. If you go to Developer Center, go to videos, there's a DevCast section, and it'll be posted. It'll be available here within a couple of days. It takes us a couple of days to get that. All right. So I hope this was informative. Chris, again, thanks for joining and giving us some of those extra details that I wasn't aware of. I hope I didn't step out of line on some of that. There was one more thing while I've got you all here. We've got a few more minutes. I don't know if you all are aware. You maybe not everybody has admin access, but if you go to admin, and on the right-hand side, I think on the right-hand side, you get these release notes. I don't know how many of you actually pay attention, but something that came up here is JSON variables and states in Architect. So, if you click on a release note here, it'll give you the breakdown of those. This is something fairly new. So using JSON in Architect has always been a pain. I know this is related to task management, but I wanted to bring this up. it's always been a pain to work with JSON data in Architect. It really wasn't designed for that, but they've recently added JSON capabilities. From a developer perspective, where that's really important is if you're calling a data action to get the conversation data back, if you've had to parse that data to dig down into some participant attributes and find the agent participant and get some custom data that's just on that active agent participant, it is hard to build that template. It is hard to build that in a data action. Presumably now you can return that whole JSON object from the data action back to Architect, and you can use the expression builder to use dot notation to get into that JSON object and get to that data. So my point is, you don't have to build really complicated JSON path templates in the data action any longer. You can just return the whole JSON blob back to Architect and operate in it, or operate on it in Architect, which should be easier. I just saw this the other day. I just got back from vacation and saw this, that it was posted last week. So I haven't played with it, but it looks promising. I would encourage you, if you guys do data actions and Architect work, maybe look into that, maybe play with that. It's kind of something that those things that show up in the release notes, sometimes they fly under the radar, but every Wednesday I come in here and I look and see what the new things that were released. And every so often, there's something for the platform, some API change or something that kind of sneaks in that you don't necessarily recognize. So might keep an eye on that. And with that, we're up against time. And again, watch for our developer newsletter that comes out. Sign up for our DevCast for next month, and we'll talk to you then. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.